The sun was just beginning to rise over the dusty plains when the cowboy saddled his horse and prepared for the day. His cabin stood at the edge of a small settlement. It's far enough from the town to enjoy quiet mornings, but close enough to hear the distant voices of the villagers. Life on the frontier was never easy, and he had grown accustomed to the challenges of the land, harsh weather, long rides, and the constant need to protect oneself and others. Yet he was known among the people not just for his skill with a horse or his ability to track animals across the wide open plains, but for his strong sense of justice. Those who knew him trusted that he would always step in when someone was in danger, even when it meant risking his own safety. That morning, the calm of the plains was broken by the sound of raised voices coming from the town square. Curious, the cowboy urged his horse toward the commotion. As he drew closer, he saw a crowd gathered in a rough circle, their eyes fixed on a young native girl standing in the center. Her face was pale with fear, her hands trembling. She seemed so small and vulnerable among the harsh men and stern villagers surrounding her. The town authority had accused her of a minor mistake, something that, by itself, was hardly deserving of punishment, but in the harshness of frontier justice. She was to be whipped as an example. The cowboy felt a tightness in his chest. He had seen injustice before, but something about the girl's terrified eyes struck him deeply. She was no threat to anyone. She had only made a mistake, yet she faced a punishment meant to humiliate and hurt her. The crowd, which had gathered in curiosity, murmured among themselves, saw him glancing at each other with uncomfortable looks, unsure if they should intervene. The town authority, a stern man with a heavy hand, raised his whip and prepared to carry out the punishment. Without hesitation, the cowboy stepped into the circle. His voice was calm but firm as he spoke. "Stop. This is not right. She has done no harm to anyone. You cannot punish her like this." The men around him laughed at first, thinking it was a joke or that he had no authority to interfere. But the cowboy's eyes were steady, his posture unyielding. And there was a quiet strength about him that made the laughter fade. The town authority frowned, annoyed by the interruption, but the cowboy did not back down. "If you go through with this, it won't just be her who suffers," he said. "It will be a mark on all of us, and I will not let it happen." The girl looked at him with wide eyes, hope flickering in her fear. She had not expected anyone to intervene, certainly not someone as strong and brave as this cowboy. Her heart pounded as she saw him step closer to her, placing himself between her and the whip. The tension in the square was thick. Some of the villagers whispered to each other, surprised at the courage of the lone man challenging the authority. The cowboy continued, his voice rising just enough to be heard clearly. "She is just a child. She made a mistake, yes, but she deserves guidance, not pain. There is no honor in harming her." His words carried weight, not just in meaning but in the certainty with which they were spoken. Slowly, the authority lowered his hand, uncertainty crossing his face. The crowd watched, waiting, sensing that something unusual was happening. Finally, after a long moment, the authority gave a reluctant nod and gestured for the girl to step back. The whip, which had hung ready in his hand, was lowered completely. The cowboy turned to the girl, offering her a reassuring smile. "It's all right now," he said softly. "You are safe." Tears welled in the girl's eyes, and she blinked rapidly, unsure if she should trust her relief. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Thank you for helping me." The cowboy nodded. "No need to thank me. Everyone deserves kindness. Today, I just did what was right." As the crowd slowly dispersed, the girl stayed a few steps behind, watching him with a mixture of awe and curiosity. She wanted to say more, to express the gratitude she felt. But the words seemed too small for the way her heart was swelling. The cowboy mounted his horse and looked back at her one last time. "Be careful," he said. "Learn from your mistakes and stay strong." The girl nodded, feeling a courage she had not known before. The fear that had gripped her moments ago was fading, replaced by a sense of hope. She realized that someone could truly care about another person, even a stranger. And that realization filled her with admiration for the cowboy, who had stepped in when no one else had, as he rode back to his cabin. The cowboy thought about the events of the morning. He knew that life on the frontier often forced people to act harshly, to make difficult decisions that were not always fair. But he also knew that fairness and compassion mattered more than fear or punishment. The young girl had reminded him of that simple truth, and he felt a quiet satisfaction in knowing that he had done what was right. Meanwhile, the girl returned to her small dwelling, replaying the morning in her mind. She thought about how frightened she had been, how hopeless it had seemed, and how suddenly everything had changed because of one man's courage. She wanted to find a way to repay his kindness, to show that her gratitude was not fleeting. In her heart, she made a silent promise that she would not forget him and that she would find a way to express her thanks. No matter what it took, the day continued on the plains. With the sun climbing higher in the sky and the townspeople returning to their daily work, yet for the cowboy and the girl, something significant had shifted. A bond, invisible but strong, had begun to form between them. It was not a bond of obligation or reward, but one built on respect, trust, and the recognition of human goodness. Even without words, each of them felt it. Like a quiet light shining through the uncertainties of life on the frontier. As evening approached, the cowboy sat on the porch of his cabin, the wind rustling the tall grass around him. He thought about the young girl's eyes, wide with both fear and hope, and felt a gentle reminder that life was not only about survival, but about protecting what was right. It was moments like these, he reflected, that gave meaning to the long days, the lonely nights, and the constant challenges of frontier life. Acts of courage, small as they might seem, could change lives. The girl, lying awake in her modest home, could not stop thinking about the cowboy. She imagined his strong figure, his kind eyes, and the calm way he had stepped in when everyone else had hesitated. She wanted to find a way to show him that she remembered, that she appreciated, and that she had not forgotten the bravery and kindness he had shown her. The thought kept her awake, but it was a sweet kind of restlessness. Filled with determination rather than fear, the next morning would bring new possibilities, new challenges, and new decisions for both of them. But the memory of the rescue, the courage displayed, the bond formed in those few tense moments would stay with them forever. It was a beginning, not an ending, and both the cowboy and the young girl felt it, even if they did not yet fully understand what it might lead to. The morning sun rose slowly over the wide open plains, painting the sky with shades of pink and gold. The cowboy woke early, as he always did, his body accustomed to the rhythm of frontier life. He had spent the night thinking about the events of the previous day, the memory of the young girl's frightened eyes still vivid in his mind. Though life on the frontier was often harsh and unforgiving, moments like those reminded him why he continued to act with kindness and courage. It was not just about survival. It was about protecting what was right, and sometimes helping those who could not help themselves. He saddled his horse and rode out toward the hills, letting the morning breeze cool his face. The land stretched endlessly, dotted with patches of wildflowers and low shrubs. As he rode, he thought about the girl and wondered how she was doing. He did not know her name, and they had shared only a few words. But there was something about her bravery in the face of fear that had stayed with him. The cowboy had seen many people on the frontier, some brave, some timid, some cruel, and some kind-hearted. Yet, there was a quiet strength in her that reminded him that courage came in many forms, and that even those who seemed small and powerless could inspire the strongest of hearts. Meanwhile, the young girl awoke in her small home, the soft light of morning spilling through the window. She lay still for a moment, recalling the events of the previous day. The fear, the crowd, the raised whip, and finally, the cowboy who had stepped in to protect Hert's memory stirred a mixture of gratitude and awe within her. She could not stop thinking about him. The way he had faced the crowd with calm determination, how he had spoken with a quiet authority that demanded respect. She wanted to find a way to show him her thanks, though she knew words alone would not be enough. The girl decided to go outside, carrying a small bundle she had prepared the night before. It contained simple gifts items she had made with care and thought, meant to show her gratitude. There was a small woven basket, some freshly baked bread, and a few wildflowers she had picked from the nearby meadow. Each item was humble, but each held meaning. She had spent hours preparing them, hoping they could express the depth of her thanks. As she walked through the village, people watched her curiously, noticing the determination in her steps and the careful way she carried her bundle. The cowboy returned to his cabin later that morning, tending to the chores that filled his day. He fed the horses, checked the fences, and mended a small section of roof that had been damaged in a recent storm. Though his hands were calloused and his work was demanding, he moved with a quiet purpose, thinking little of himself and more of the work that needed to be done. Yet even as he performed his tasks, he could not shake the memory of the girl. He wondered how she was faring, whether she was safe, and whether the world would be kinder to her now that she had escaped punishment as the sun climbed higher in the sky. The girl approached the cowboy's cabin, her heart pounding with a mix of excitement and nervousness. She had never visited the home of someone she did not know, and the thought of entering his space made her both anxious and determined. When she reached the porch, she paused, taking a deep breath, and then knocked lightly on the wooden door. The sound echoed softly in the quiet morning air. The cowboy, hearing the knock, wiped his hands on a cloth and opened the door. He was surprised to see the young girl standing there, holding her bundle with both hands. For a moment, he simply looked at her, noticing the mixture of shyness and determination in her eyes. "Good morning," he said kindly. "What brings you here?" The girl hesitated for a moment, then spoke softly. I wanted to thank you," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "For yesterday. For saving me." She held out the bundle she had carried, her small hands offering it with care. "I made these for you." The cowboy studied the items, smiling warmly. He could see the effort and thought behind each piece. "You didn't have to do this," he said gently. "Helping you was the right thing to do. I don't need anything in return." The girl shook her head. "I want to," she insisted. "I can't forget what you did for me. Please, take it." She placed the basket, the bread, and the wildflowers on the porch railing. Stepping back slightly as if unsure how her gesture would be received, the cowboy crouched down to her level. Taking a moment to look into her eyes, "It is kind of you," he said, "but the true thanks is in seeing you safe and well. That is enough for me." The girl's eyes filled with tears, but this time they were not from fear, they were from gratitude and relief. "I want to help you too," she said. "I can do chores, carry water, or anything you need. I want to show my thanks by being useful." The cowboy chuckled softly, shaking his head. "There is no need for that either," he said, though the warmth in his voice made her feel welcome. "But if you wish to stay a while, you are welcome. We can work together, and I can teach you some things about the land and life on the plains." The girl's face brightened with hope. "I would like that," she said eagerly. "I want to learn. I want to be helpful." And so, the day began differently than either of them had expected. The cowboy showed her how to feed the animals, how to care for the garden, and how to mend simple things around the cabin. She worked carefully, following his instructions, her small hands learning the rhythm of frontier life. With each task, she felt a growing sense of pride and purpose, knowing that she was contributing in a meaningful way. The cowboy, in turn, found joy in her curiosity and willingness to learn. He was patient, explaining things slowly and clearly, showing her the value of care, attention, respect for all living things. They shared stories of their lives, her speaking softly of her family and her village, him recalling moments from his years on the plains. Each story brought them closer, creating a bond that was gentle yet strong, built on trust, respect, and the shared experiences of a single day. As afternoon turned to evening, they sat together on the porch, watching the sun dip low over the horizon. The sky was painted with colors that seemed almost magical, and the wind carried the faint scent of wildflowers and earth. The girl looked at the cowboy with gratitude and admiration. "I will never forget what you did for me," she said quietly. The cowboy smiled, feeling a sense of quiet satisfaction. "And I will never forget your courage," he replied. "You faced a frightening situation with strength, even though you were scared. That is something to be proud of," the girl nodded, feeling a warmth in her heart that went beyond gratitude. She had come to understand that true kindness did not require reward. That courage could be found in the smallest acts, and that helping others could create bonds that lasted longer than any material gift. As night fell, the cowboy and the girl went inside the cabin. Finishing the chores and preparing a simple meal together, the fire crackled in the hearth, and the warmth of the cabin contrasted with the cool night air outside. They shared the food, laughing softly at small mistakes and enjoying the simple pleasure of each other's company. The girl felt a sense of belonging she had not known before, and the cowboy felt the quiet happiness of knowing he had made a real difference in someone's life before the girl left to return to her home for the night. She knelt briefly to place a small flower she had picked earlier beside the cowboy's chair. "This is for you," she whispered, "to remember today." The cowboy looked at the flower, touched by the gesture. "Thank you," he said softly. "I will remember." She walked back through the village under the starry sky. She felt a mixture of hope and determination. She had learned that courage and kindness mattered more than fear or punishment. She had discovered that one act of bravery could change a life forever. She knew she wanted to continue learning, growing, and one day, to repay the kindness she had been shown in a meaningful way. Back at the cabin, the cowboy sat quietly by the fire, thinking about the day's events. The memory of her eyes, wide with hope and gratitude, stayed with him. He realized that life on the frontier was not just about survival or hard work. It was about the connections we make, the lives we touch, and the courage to do what is right, even when it is difficult. The bond formed between them was a quiet reminder that true kindness was never wasted, and that even the smallest acts could leave lasting impressions. And so, the day ended, leaving both the cowboy and the young girl changed in ways neither of them could yet fully understand. The memory of courage, gratitude, and shared experience would linger in their hearts, laying the foundation for a friendship that would grow stronger with time, built on respect, trust, and the simple yet profound power of kindness. The next morning, the cowboy awoke to the sound of birds singing outside his cabin. The air was crisp and fresh, carrying the faint scent of wildflowers and dew-soaked grass. Life on the plains was quiet at this hour, the world slowly stirring as the sun began its climb over the horizon. He yawned, stretched, and prepared for the day's work, unaware that today would bring a visitor he had not yet expected. The young girl, meanwhile, had risen with determination in her heart. She had spent the night thinking about how she could repay the cowboy for the courage and kindness he had shown her. Words and gifts felt small in comparison to what he had done for her. She wanted to show him her gratitude in a way that would matter, something more than a simple token. She wanted to offer her help, her companionship, and her willingness to learn. Clutching a small bundle she had packed, containing some food she had prepared and a few simple items she thought might be useful to him, she set out toward his cabin, her steps quick and purposeful. When she arrived, she paused for a moment at the edge of the clearing, taking a deep breath to calm the flutter of nerves in her chest. The cabin looked peaceful in the morning light, smoke curling gently from the chimney, and the sound of a horse moving softly nearby reminded her that the cowboy was already awake. Gathering her courage, she approached the front porch and knocked gently on the wooden door. The cowboy, hearing the knock, turned and opened the door. His face lit up with surprise and curiosity when he saw the young girl standing there, holding her bundle. "Good morning," he said kindly. "What brings you here so early?" The girl's heart raced, but she held her head high. "Good morning, sir," she said softly. "I came to thank you again and to offer my help. I want to do something for you for all you did yesterday." As if inviting him to see the care she had taken in preparing it, the cowboy knelt down slightly to meet her eyes. "You don't have to," he said gently. "Your safety is thanks enough. I do not expect anything in return." The girl shook her head firmly. "I want to," she said. "I can cook, clean, help with the animals, or anything you need. Please let me do something useful." Her eyes shone with sincerity, and there was a quiet strength in her voice that surprised even him. The cowboy studied her for a moment. Seeing her determination and the care with which she had prepared the bundle, he smiled, recognizing the same courage he had seen the day before. "Very well," he said finally. "If you are willing, I would be glad for your help. But you must understand, it is not as easy as it looks. There is work to be done, and it requires patience and care." The girl nodded eagerly. "I understand," she said. "I am ready." And so she entered the cabin and placed her bundle on the table. It contained fresh bread, some wild berries she had picked, and a small woven cloth she had made herself. Each item was simple, yet it carried meaning, her gratitude and respect carefully woven into every detail. The cowboy accepted the gifts with a warm smile. "Thank you," he said. "These will be very helpful." He led her outside to begin the day's work. First, they tended to the animals. The cowboy showed her how to feed the horses, check the water troughs, and care for the chickens and goats. The girl followed his instructions carefully, asking questions when she was unsure and working diligently to do everything correctly. She moved with a quiet confidence, learning quickly and gaining the cowboy's respect with every task she completed. After the morning chores, they moved on to the garden. The cowboy explained the importance of watering plants at the right time, loosening the soil to help it breathe, and carefully removing weeds that could harm the crops. The girl listened intently, her small hands working alongside his, carefully following his guidance. She asked questions about the different herbs and vegetables, curious about how each one could be used for food or medicine. The cowboy was patient, explaining each detail with care. He was impressed by her curiosity and willingness to learn. As they worked, they shared stories about their lives. The girl spoke of her family, her village, and the traditions she had grown up with. The cowboy listened with interest, fascinated by the different perspectives she offered. He shared stories of his own life on the plains, the challenges he had faced, and the lessons he had learned over the years. Their conversations were easy and natural, filled with laughter, surprise, and moments of thoughtful silence. By midday, they paused to rest. The girl brought out some of the bread and berries from her bundle. They sat together in the shade of a tree, sharing the simple meal. She offered some to him first, insisting he try it. He took a bite, smiling at the care she had put into preparing it. "This is very good," he said. "You have done well." The girl beamed with pride. "I wanted it to be useful," she said. "Not just a gift, but something that helps." Cowboy nodded. "That is the kind of gratitude that lasts," he said softly. "It is not just about words or gifts. It is about effort, care, and thoughtfulness. You have shown all of that today." After the meal, they returned to their work. The cowboy taught her how to mend fences and repair simple tools. She learned quickly, her hands steady and careful, following his instructions with precision. As the day went on, they moved with ease around the cabin and the surrounding land, each task building trust and a sense of shared purpose. In the afternoon, a small challenge arose. A young goat had wandered too far from the pen and was stuck in the tall grass near the edge of the property. The cowboy gestured to the girl and said, "We need to be careful. Goats can be tricky, and this one is frightened." Together, they approached the animal slowly, speaking softly to calm it. The girl extended her hand gently, coaxing the goat closer while the cowboy guided it back toward safety. With patience and teamwork, they succeeded, and the goat returned safely to the pen. The girl's eyes sparkled with excitement and relief. "We did it," she exclaimed. The cowboy smiled, impressed by her courage and calmness. "Yes, we did," he said. "You handled that very well. It shows how much you have learned today." As the sun began to sink toward the horizon, they finished the remaining chores. The cabin looked tidy, the animals were cared for, and the garden was in good order. The cowboy and the girl sat together on the porch, watching the sky turn orange and pink as evening approached. The wind carried the gentle scent of the plains, and the soft sounds of nature filled the quiet air. The girl turned to the cowboy. "I am so grateful," she said sincerely. "Not just for saving me, but for letting me help today. I feel happy. I feel proud." The cowboy looked at her, a warmth in his eyes. "And I am grateful to see you safe, confident, and willing to learn," he said. "You have courage and a good heart. That is something worth more than any gift. They watched the last light fade from the sky in comfortable silence, feeling a sense of peace and connection. The girl realized that gratitude was not just about giving gifts, it was about offering effort, care, and companionship. She had found a way to repay the cowboy, not in gold or material things, but in her willingness to help learn and share the day with him. As the stars began to appear, twinkling softly in the night sky, the cowboy and the girl prepared for the evening. They tended the animals one last time, made a simple dinner together, and sat near the fire inside the cabin. The warmth of the flames contrasted with the cool night air outside, and the girl felt a sense of belonging she had not known before. She realized that kindness and courage could create bonds stronger than fear or misunderstanding. Before she returned to her home, she knelt briefly by the cowboy's chair and placed a small wildflower she had picked earlier beside him. "This is for you," she whispered softly. "To remember today and all you have done for me?" The cowboy looked at the flower and smiled. "I will remember," he said warmly, "and I will remember your courage and kindness as well." As she walked back through the quiet village under the starry sky, the girl felt a mixture of hope and determination. She had shown her gratitude in a meaningful way, learned new skills, and discovered that helping others could strengthen bonds and hearts alike. The cowboy, sitting by the fire in his cabin, felt a quiet satisfaction, knowing that their shared day had created something lasting, your connection based on trust, respect, and the courage to do what is right. And so, the day ended, leaving both the cowboy and the young girl with memories of a shared journey, the warmth of kindness and the understanding that gratitude is best expressed through actions, care, and the willingness to learn from and help one another. The morning light stretched across the plains, painting the sky with soft shades of orange and gold. The cowboy woke with a quiet sense of purpose. Life on the frontier was never easy, and each day brought new tasks, challenges, and responsibilities. Yet today felt different. The young girl had returned to his cabin the day before, and they had spent the day together in work and conversation. He thought about her determination, her courage, and the care she had shown. Even in the simplest acts, she had revealed a strength that impressed him deeply. The girl, meanwhile, awoke in her home with a sense of anticipation. She had learned so much from her first day at the cabin. The cowboy had not only taught her how to care for animals, tend the garden, and maintain the cabin, but he had also shown her the value of patience, respect, and careful work. She was eager to return, to continue learning, and to share in the work that now felt meaningful. Her bundle was ready, filled with some simple food, cloths, and a few tools she had brought to help. She wanted to contribute, not just as a way of repaying him, but because she genuinely wanted to be useful. When she arrived at the cabin, the cowboy greeted her with a smile. "Good morning," he said. "Ready for another day?" "Yes," she replied, smiling. "I want to learn more, and I want to help as much as I can." They started the day with the animals. The cowboy showed her how to check for signs of illness, how to feed the animals properly, and how to ensure the water was clean. She watched carefully, asking questions and observing his every move. When he gave instructions, she followed them with care, her hands moving skillfully, proving that she had not only learned from the previous day, but had retained the lessons. The cowboy nodded in approval. "You are learning quickly," he said. "That shows patience and attention, which are just as important as strength." After the morning chores, they worked in the garden. The cowboy showed her how to plant new seeds, loosen the soil, and water carefully to ensure the plants would grow strong. The girl listened intently, learning not only how to care for the garden, but also why each task mattered. She understood that small, careful actions led to greater results over time. As they worked, the cowboy told her stories about the plants, how some could be used for food, others for medicine, and some for both. She asked questions eagerly, curious about the land and its offerings. By midday, they paused for a simple meal under the shade of a tree. The girl brought out bread, fruit, and some dried meat she had packed. They ate together, sharing stories and laughter. The cowboy enjoyed hearing about her family, the traditions of her village, and her dreams for the future. The girl, in turn, listened to stories of his life on the plains, the challenges he had faced, and the lessons he had learned. Each story brought them closer, creating a bond built on trust, respect, and the sharing of life experiences. After the meal, the cowboy suggested they take a walk through the surrounding land. "I want to show you something," he said. They walked along a small creek where the water flowed gently over smooth stones. The cowboy pointed to the plants along the banks, explaining which ones were edible and which could be used to make tea or medicine. The girl listened closely, fascinated by his knowledge. She realized that every part of the land had a purpose, and learning to understand it meant learning to respect it as they walked. They noticed a small patch of wildflowers growing near the creek. The girl knelt down to examine them, her fingers brushing lightly over the petals. "These are beautiful," she said softly. "Do they have a use?" The cowboy smiled. "Yes, some do. Some are used for medicine, some for decoration, and some simply to bring joy. It is important to notice both the usefulness and the beauty of the land. That is part of respecting it." The girl nodded thoughtfully. She realized that life was more than just chores, and survival it was about observing, learning, and appreciating the world around her. She also understood that true gratitude and kindness were shown not just through words, but through actions, thoughtfulness, and a willingness to learn. Later in the afternoon, a small challenge arose. A young goat had wandered out of the pen again, this time tangled in a low bush. The cowboy gestured to the girl and said, "We need to be careful. It is frightened, and sudden movements could scare it more." Together, they approached the animal slowly, speaking softly to calm it. The girl reached out with gentle hands, untangling the branches while the cowboy steadied the goat. After a few tense moments, they freed the animal, which ran safely back to the pen. The girl's eyes sparkled with pride. "We did it," she exclaimed. "Yes, we did," the cowboy said, smiling. "That shows how well you can work together and remain calm in difficult situations. It is an important lesson not just for animals, but for life itself." As the day went on, they continued with small tasks around the cabin. The girl learned to mend simple tools, carry water from the well, and prepare food for the evening meal. Each task, no matter how small, brought a sense of accomplishment and pride. She realized that helping others, contributing to a larger purpose, and learning new skills could bring joy in a way that gifts or words alone could not. By evening, the sun was beginning to set, casting a warm golden glow across the plains. The cowboy and the girl sat together on the porch, looking out over the land they had worked on throughout the day. The animals were settled, the garden was tidy, and the cabin was in good order. The girl turned to the cowboy, her eyes shining. "Thank you," she said softly. "I have learned so much today, and I feel happy. I feel proud of what I have done." The cowboy smiled, his heart warmed by her words. "And I am proud of you," he said. "You have shown courage, patience, and kindness. These are qualities that matter more than strength or skill alone. You have grown today, and it shows in everything you have done." The girl looked at him thoughtfully. "I've also learned that kindness is important," she said. "Helping others, being careful, and thinking of them, it makes life better for everyone. I want to be like that, always." "You already are," the cowboy said, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. "You have shown it not just in words, but in your actions. That is what truly matters." As the stars began to appear in the sky, they prepared a simple evening meal together. The fire crackled in the hearth, filling the cabin with warmth and light. They shared the meal quietly, enjoying the comfort of companionship after a day of work and learning. The girl felt a deep sense of satisfaction, realizing that gratitude was not just about giving gifts or saying thanks, it was about effort, care, and shared experiences. Before she returned home for the night, the girl knelt briefly to place a small flower she had picked beside the cowboy's chair. "This is for you," she whispered, "to remember today and everything you have taught me." The cowboy looked at the flower, touched by her thoughtfulness. "I will remember," he said warmly, "and I will remember your courage and kindness as well. Today has been a good day, thanks to you." She walked back to her home under the starry sky. The girl thought about all she had learned and all she wanted to learn in the future. She had discovered that courage, kindness, and effort were more valuable than any material gift. She had learned that helping others and working together could create bonds stronger than fear or hardship. And she had realized that even the smallest acts, when done with care and attention, could make a lasting difference in someone's life. Back at the cabin, the cowboy sat quietly by the fire, thinking about the day's events. He reflected on the lessons he had shared, the courage he had seen, and the bond that was growing between him and the young girl. Frontier life was full of challenges, but moments like these made the hard days worthwhile. He knew that kindness and courage could change lives in ways that went far beyond immediate needs. And he knew that the girl, in her own way, was learning the same truth, that strength was not just measured in muscles or skill, but in compassion, patience, and a willingness to help others. And so the day ended, leaving both the cowboy and the girl with memories of shared work, learned lessons, and a bond that was growing stronger with each passing moment. They had faced challenges together, learned from one another, and discovered that true friendship was built on respect, trust, and the quiet, powerful force of kindness. The sun rose slowly over the plains, casting a soft golden light across the cabin and the surrounding land. The cowboy awoke with a quiet sense of purpose. Today was another day of work, of tending the animals, repairing fences, and caring for the land, but there was a sense of anticipation in the air. Over the past few days, the young girl had visited his cabin, helping with chores, learning from him, and sharing stories. Each day, she had grown more confident, more skilled, and more comfortable in the rhythm of frontier life. Their bond had strengthened, and the cowboy felt a quiet satisfaction in seeing her grow. The girl woke in her small home with a sense of excitement. Today, she would spend her time with the cowboy again, learning more and continuing to help. She had packed a small bundle with fresh bread, a few wild berries, and a woven cloth she had made herself. She wanted to contribute, not just to repay his kindness, but because she truly enjoyed being useful and learning new things. She felt a sense of pride in her work and a determination to continue growing stronger and more capable. When she arrived at the cabin, the cowboy greeted her with a warm smile. "Good morning," he said. "Ready for another day of work?" "Yes," she replied eagerly. "I want to help, and I want to learn as much as I can." They began the day with the animals. The cowboy showed her how to care for the horses, check the water, and feed the chickens and goats. She moved with confidence, her hands steady, remembering the lessons from the previous days. The cowboy watched her carefully, noticing how much she had learned and how well she applied that knowledge. He felt a sense of pride in her growth and determination. After the morning chores, they moved to the garden. The cowboy taught her how to plant seeds for the upcoming season, loosen the soil, and remove weeds carefully so that the plants could grow strong. He explained the uses of different herbs and vegetables, and she listened intently, asking thoughtful questions. She was curious and attentive, eager to learn, and her enthusiasm made the cowboy smile. He realized that teaching her had not only helped her, but it also reminded him of the beauty and complexity of the land he had lived on for so long. By midday, they paused for a simple meal. The girl shared the bread and berries she had brought, and they ate together under the shade of a tree. Their conversation flowed easily. She spoke of her family, her village, and her dreams for the future. While he told stories of his life on the plains, the challenges he had faced, and the lessons he had learned, through their exchange they learned from each other, gaining new perspectives and understanding. The cowboy admired her courage and determination, while she admired his patience and wisdom. After the meal, they walked along the edge of the property, checking fences and observing the animals. The cowboy pointed out small details about the land, teaching her how to notice signs of weather changes, animal behavior, and the health of plants. She absorbed every lesson, her eyes wide with curiosity and her mind eager to remember everything. It was a day of learning, of growth, and of mutual respect. Later in the afternoon, they faced a small challenge. A young goat had wandered near the creek, caught in a patch of thick brush. The cowboy signaled for the girl to approach carefully. "We must be gentle," he said. "It is frightened, and sudden movements could make it worse. Together, they worked slowly, coaxing the goat and untangling the branches. The girl's hands were steady and careful, and her voice soft and soothing. After a tense moment, the goat was free, running safely back to the pen. The girl's face lit up with pride and joy. "We did it," she exclaimed. "Yes," the cowboy said, smiling. "That shows patience, care, and teamwork. These are lessons not only for animals, but for life itself." As the day continued, they finished the remaining chores, repairing fences, carrying water, and preparing the cabin for the evening. The girl worked with a sense of purpose, her actions a reflection of her gratitude and determination to be helpful. The cowboy observed her closely, noticing the growth in her confidence and skill. He realized that the small acts of work and learning were teaching her more than just chores. They were teaching her courage, patience, and responsibility. As the sun began to set, painting the sky with brilliant shades of orange and pink, they sat together on the porch. The animals were settled, the garden was tidy, and the cabin was in order. The girl turned to the cowboy. "Thank you," she said softly. "I have learned so much, and I feel proud of myself. But more than that, I feel happy. I feel like I have done something important." The cowboy looked at her with warmth and pride. "And you have," he said. "You have learned, worked hard, and shown courage. You have grown in ways that cannot be measured by words or gifts. That is true growth, and it is something to be proud of." The girl nodded, understanding the depth of his words. She realized that helping others, working together, and learning new skills were more valuable than any reward. She had discovered that kindness and courage were qualities that created lasting connections and deep satisfaction. As night fell, they prepared a simple meal together. The fire crackled in the hearth, filling the cabin with warmth and light. They ate quietly, enjoying the comfort of each other's company after a day of shared work. The girl reflected on everything she had learned and accomplished. She felt a sense of belonging and pride that she had never known before. She realized that gratitude was not only about saying thank you, but about taking action, learning, and being helpful in meaningful ways. Before she returned to her home, she placed a small flower she had picked beside the cowboy's chair. "This is for you," she said softly, "to remember today and everything you have taught me." The cowboy looked at the flower, touched by her thoughtfulness. "I will remember," he said warmly, "and I will remember your courage, your effort, and your kindness. Today has been a good day because of you." The girl walked home under the starry sky, feeling a sense of hope and determination. She thought about all she had learned, the skills she had gained, and the bond she had formed with the cowboy. She knew that gratitude was best shown through actions and care, and she felt proud of the way she had expressed it. The cowboy sat quietly by the fire, reflecting on the days that had passed. He thought about the girl's courage, determination, and willingness to learn. Frontier life was difficult, often harsh and unforgiving, but moments like these made the hard days worthwhile. He realized that true kindness and courage could create lasting bonds and change lives in ways that words alone could not. Over the next few days, the girl continued to visit the cabin. Each day, she learned more, helped more, and grew more confident. Their friendship deepened, built on trust, respect, and shared experiences. She became skilled in the chores of the cabin, caring for the animals, tending the garden, and assisting with repairs. The cowboy continued to teach her, guiding her with patience and wisdom, and he was impressed by her determination and growth. One evening, after finishing their work, they sat together on the porch. Watching the sun set over the plains, the girl spoke softly, her voice filled with gratitude. "I will never forget what you have done for me," she said. "Not just saving me, but showing me how to learn, work, and grow. You have changed my life." The cowboy looked at her with gentle pride. "And you have changed mine," he said. "By showing courage, determination, and kindness, you have reminded me why it is important to help others. True friendship, trust, and respect are the most valuable things in life. You have shown all of that, and I will never forget it." As the stars twinkled above, the girl realized that she had learned a powerful lesson, that kindness and courage could create bonds stronger than fear or hardship. She understood that gratitude was not measured in words or gifts, but in effort, care, and shared experiences. She felt a deep sense of satisfaction, knowing that she had shown her thanks in a meaningful way. The cowboy, sitting quietly by the fire, felt the same sense of fulfillment. He had acted out of kindness and courage, but the bond he had formed with the girl, the trust and respect they shared, was more rewarding than any reward he could have received. He realized that small acts of bravery and compassion could change lives in ways that lasted far longer than the moment itself. And so, their story reached a quiet, heartwarming conclusion. The young girl returned home each evening, carrying the lessons she had learned, the skills she had gained, and the memories of shared work and friendship. The cowboy continued his life on the plains, enriched by the experience of guiding, teaching, and forming a bond that would last. Their connection, built on trust, respect, and the quiet power of kindness, remained strong, leaving both of them changed forever, through courage, patience, and simple acts of care. They had discovered something lasting, that true gratitude, friendship, and the power to change lives come not from wealth or rewards, but from kindness, effort, and the willingness to help and learn from one another. And as the plains stretched endlessly before them, they both knew that this bond, born of bravery and shared experience, would remain in their hearts for years to come.